At 23:40 on December 29, 1944, the airfield on Morotai Island fell silent. 20,000 American soldiers and engineers lay in their tents, but they weren't sleeping. They were listening. For 2 straight weeks, the Japanese had sent bombers every single night. Over 300 air raid alerts. The goal was simple: destroy the airstrips before they could be used to liberate the Philippines. That night, 12 Japanese bombers were heading their way. Standing between them and destruction was just one aircraft climbing into the pitch-black sky. Its pilot was a 26-year-old major from Texas named Carroll Smith. He was about to have a night that would go down in history. This is the story of the deadliest 49 minutes of the war. Smith's aircraft was the P-61 Black Widow. It was the first American plane built from the ground up for night fighting. It was massive twin engines, a crew of 3, and coated in flat black paint to hide in the darkness. But its real secret weapon was in the nose, the SCR-720 radar. To the Japanese, the night was a sanctuary. They flew twin-engine bombers Mitsubishi G4EMs, known as Betches, believing darkness made them invisible. They were wrong. Lieutenant Philip Porter, Smith's radar operator, could see them on his screen from miles away. The problem was mathematics. The Japanese sent 12 bombers. The Americans sent one P-61. If Smith engaged one, 11 others could slip past. The pressure wasn't just about a dogfight. It was about the lives of the 20,000 men sleeping below. At 23:42, Porter's voice crackled in Smith's earphones. 4 contacts. The hunt was on. Smith couldn't see a thing. Outside the canopy, no stars, no horizon. He flew entirely on instruments, guided by Porter's calm voice. Left 5 degrees, down 3. At 500 yards, Smith finally saw it, a dark shape, the faint blue-orange glow of engine exhaust. He moved into position below and behind, where the bomber's gunners couldn't reach. At 350 yards, he fired the 4 20mm cannons. The effect was devastating. The Betty-class bombers had a critical flaw. They lacked self-sealing fuel tanks. One burst was enough. The first bomber exploded into a fireball and vanished from the radar. 1 down. What followed was a whirlwind. Smith and Porter moved like a single organism. Porter would find them. Smith would stalk them. At 1:19, a second bomber fell, then a third. This one was different, a faster Helen Balmer, whose tail gunner spotted them. Tracers lit up the night, but Smith held his course, fired, and watched it spin into the ocean. By 1:35, Smith had destroyed his 4th bomber. His fuel gauge was dipping below safety margins. Bofter told him to go home, but Porter's radar showed one more contactor, lone bomber just 12 miles from the airfield. Smith made the call. He dove on the 5th bomber, fired a final burst, and watched it impact the water. 5 bombers destroyed. With fuel critically low, Smith turned for home. But as they approached the island, Porter's radar lit up again. A new contact. This one was heading straight for the airfield from the north. Smith had 19% fuel left. Engaging meant risking running out of gas over the ocean. Ignoring it meant letting a Japanese pilot attack the base. He turned to engage. As they closed in, Smith realized this was no bomber. It was a Nakajima Kiti for Frank, a state-of-the-art Japanese fighter, faster and more agile than the P-61. But in the dark, the Frank pilot was blind. Smith, guided by radar, was not. He slipped in below and behind the Frank. At 300 yards, he fired a long burst. The engine exploded. At 3,000 feet, the pilot ejected, his parachute a stark white cross against the black sky. 6 kills, but Smith had 15% fuel left, and Morotai was still 11 miles away. As Smith entered the landing pattern, disaster struck. The runway lights went out, total blackout. It was 5:55. The base, fearing another attack, had cut all illumination. Smith was 3 miles out, 800 feet up, with less than 10 minutes of fuel. He couldn't go to another airfield. He'd never make it. So, he did something incredibly dangerous. Using only his radar altimeter and dead reckoning, he began a descent into the void. 400 feet. 200.50. He couldn't see the ground. He couldn't see the runway. He just had to trust his instruments and believe he was in the right place. At 5:59, the main landing gear hit. crushed coral. The impact was hard, but the gear held. He was downed. When the P-61 rolled to a stop, the fuel gauges read empty. He had less than 3 minutes of fuel left. In just 49 minutes, Carroll Smith had shot down 5 bombers and a fighter. It was a feat unmatched by any other American night fighter pilot in history. He never sought fame. After the war, he returned to Texas and lived a quiet life. But his actions that night saved the airfield. The invasion of the Philippines proceeded on schedule, a direct result of the air cover those airstrips provided. The P-61 Black Widow was a marvel of technology, but it was the courage of men like Smith and Porter, flying blind into a sky full of enemies, that won the war. Their story is a testament to skill, nerve, and the incredible power of human teamwork. Thank you for watching.